Welcome to Getting Started in QuickBooks Online. My name is Tracy and I'm an Elite Pro Advisor. Today we're going to go over the online version, so let's get started. First, you'll need to select your plan. You'll notice there are 4 plans here. You have the Simple Start, which is a basic program. It's got some reporting, income and expense, and it does track your mileage and will give you a cash flow. The Essentials is a little bit more meaty, you could say, and it does have the option for 3 users on that. Most of my clients choose the Plus plan. This has everything you will need, including the inventory, project profitability. A lot of my nonprofits are also using this Plus. Now, they have a specific nonprofit online version as well, where it has the right nomenclature for the reports. Instead of a profit and loss, it's a statement of activity. And you also have the advanced, which handles up to 25 users. You can have it in multiple locations. Just a really beautiful system for a high-end customer that uses a lot of inventory and possibly has a lot of locations. I'm going to go over the Plus version today, but they're all quite similar. And once you have selected, say you selected Essentials, you can always move up to the Plus. The lessons we'll be going over today are how to set up your company and bank accounts, your customers, vendors, along with looking at the employees, setting up your items so you can sell things by creating your invoices. You also will learn about how to create your bills and make payments. The 4th lesson is your bank reconciliation. And the 5th is running financial reports along with management reports. So let's get started with going over the first lesson, which is the simple login and password, setting up the company and bank, and going over the bank feeds. So on the online version, everything's held in the cloud. You will go in through your browser and sign into Intuit. And at this point, you will use the email that you actually created your company when you selected the version or the plan that you wanted. One of the things on this is setting up a email that will be used by an administrator, and then the password that's selected. And you'll just hit continue. You can also get a text code and sign in a different way through here. But you can use any device, your laptop, your phone. The first lesson again here is showing you around the system and how you move through it. So up at the top right, they refer to this as the gear. The gear opens up to the administrative part of the setup of your company. You'll notice you've got your company lists, tools, and your profile. We're going to start off with the first accounting and settings in here. And you'll go through tabs that will ask you the pertinent information. So this is where you'll go and put your logo, your company name, and then your EIN or Social Security if you are a sole proprietor. You'll be able to select your tax form through here if you are using TurboTax. Your contact information. This information shows up on your invoices. So you want to make sure that this contact information or company and the address are what you want to show on your invoicing. And then you have your address and a legal address. So you may have the business address and then all your mail gets forwarded to the legal address. Go on to the next tab, which is sales. And sales is giving you options to customize the invoice that is a template in here. So you can set up your terms, delivery method. If you use shipping, you would want to turn that on. These are all options. Someone's turned on the discount, but you can also show deposits on your invoice. and then tags, which is also a way to search for items. Products and services, so if you do sell those, that should be on. Late fees, they also go over progress invoicing, messages, reminders, online delivery, and statement. A lot of information here. It's so condensed in this one tab. Fill it out the best you can. You can always come back in and change it. Expenses, not a lot here. What we have turned on is to show the item table on expense and purchase forms. And do you actually use purchase forms? You would turn that on. Tracking expenses by customers. So if you've gone in and bought blueprints for a customer and it needs to go to the job, you can add the customer name to it. You don't have to bill it back to the customer, but it will create a job cost, and anything that you put on an invoice or a bill that goes to this customer will be caught in that job cost by customer. And then make expenses and items billable. So say I wanted to take that blueprint and bill it back to him. I could select a check mark that would make it billable. When I go into invoicing, it will show me all the items I need to bill for them, which is really cool. We've got turning your purchase orders on and setting up a default message. Time. A lot of people are using the QuickBooks payroll, and in that, QuickBooks has given them the option for your employees to use the timesheets inside of QuickBooks. Now, I believe it's handled by timesheets. It does give you an option to show your first day of the work week and allow time to be billable, meaning from your timesheets, if someone worked on a job, those hours could be billable to that customer. Let's go over the Advanced tab, which has your first month of your fiscal year, your income tax year, what accounting method you're using, and then how to close your books, which we will be using. Every time you get through a month and do a reconciliation, produce reports for banks, shareholders. We'll come in here and put a close on those books so no one can disrupt the information prior to the close. We have the tax form. This would help if you're using TurboTax. Your chart of accounts. Here, kind of old school was using account numbers, and people still use those, so you can turn those on if you are. And then the discounts. You have categories which tracks classes and locations. So class can be any kind of bucket of income and expenses that you want to track. 501c3s, they have restricted and unrestricted funds, and then they have a bunch of programs. So they'll track those by classes. I also have clients that have multiple locations. So you want to track the purchases by the locations. And then we have automation for pre-fill forms with previously entered data. So if I go to put in a utility bill, it knows next time if I typed in PG&E, utility company would come up and the account number would populate from what you used last time. It's really nice to have on. I don't particularly suggest applying credits. I like to do that manually so I can see that it is completed and gone, but you can have that turned on and automatically invoice unbilled activity. That's off for right now. It can be turned on, and it really does help keeping track of everything for you. Projects. You could have a customer and they could have 5 different projects, and you want to keep track of those different projects separately, and also by a customer that may have those multiple projects, they may want to see all their projects together. So it is a nice thing to have on if you are using the projects. Currency, what currency are you using? And then the preferences are basically how you like to see the date format, number formats. I always suggest putting warn if duplicate check number is used or bill. That will help when you are putting in a bill and you've put it in prior, it will recognize that and give you a heads up and say, hey, you've already entered this. Are you sure you want to enter it again? So there are kind of catch-alls here to help you. run your business. Next thing we're going to do, we're going back up to that gear, which is the administrative. We just got done with account and settings, and then we had manage users, where you would add the users, and you can do a custom form style for your invoices, kind of move stuff around so it looks different than others that are using QuickBooks, like half the population. But the most important thing to start off with is your chart of accounts. So like I had said, a lot of times people use numbers, but we're just using it by the name today. And you'll notice here when you choose your chart of accounts, it comes up. It usually has a pre-filled amount of chart of accounts in there, but you'll notice that the checking is set up. AR is automatic in here. You can always edit and change these names to make them more specific to what you want. Chart of accounts, again, is kind of a moving target at this point if you're not sure what accounts you want to use. So I would start with what is existing and then add as you go. So first thing I want to do is set up a bank account. I'm going to call it my checking account. And I like to identify things by the number. So if I had to look and I have a bunch of accounts in Wells Fargo, I want to make sure that I'm using the last four, so I'm selecting the correct account. But that's just me. You may have just one account and not need to clarify that. You can use the starting date and opening balance. So you say, I want to start from the beginning of the year. You've selected your year to start January. You can put in the ending balance for 12/31/2022, let's just say in this case. And you'll put that ending balance, which is coming from your bank statement. So you always want to start with putting that beginning balance because that'll tie in as you go and do your bank reconciliations for your first month. So you got to start off with that beginning amount. As we go over, I probably will end up adding accounts as we go, but we're going to start off with an income account. The tax form, it's saying, in the tax form section, where do you want this? I want it under service fee income. And the account name is design income. It will show you a little preview here of what it's going to look like on your financials. They set up a bunch in here. You don't have to use them all, and you can certainly make them inactive, or you can change the name on them to better accommodate your business. Now we're going to get things done, as it says towards the top here. You have two different really versions in here that you can view. So you can view it by the get things done, and it will show you the tasks, any bills that are overdue. It will also take you to your bank accounts, show you your profit and loss and expenses for the last month or last 30 days. It's kind of an all-in-all information center for you. One of the things that I like to go through first is setting up that bank account so it is connected in QuickBooks to your bank or savings or credit cards, and it starts downloading from the time that you actually state when you've set up your first, I guess you could say, bank account or checking account. So it will say in here, do you want to go ahead and connect your account? You'll select your bank, Wells Fargo, Chase. If not, just keep typing for it. You select your bank, and then it will take you through a process of hooking it up to the QuickBooks and then asking you how far back you want to go. So a lot of times if I'm starting from January, I'll say grab me all the bank feeds from January to now and we'll get started. What it does here is it's showing the current balance of when you updated this of the bank. So the bank here is showing a negative $3,000. In my QuickBooks, I'm showing 1,201, which tells me there's 25 transactions that still need to be entered into my live checking. So when you go in and you actually select the date range, it will populate all the transactions that went through your bank. It's not in your register yet, because we still have to identify them. And what I mean identify is every time that the bank updates, it brings in the newest information that's cleared the bank, and it gives us the opportunity to do two things. One, fill out and categorize the transaction. Or two, you can create rules up here that says every time you have a transaction that's books by Bessie, it's a sale of product income. So I can create rules and it can automatically enter transactions. I don't suggest to do that at the beginning, but as you get better at it, it will make your life a lot easier. But let's just look at the basic. A bank feed comes in. It is not in your register. It is not affecting your financials. But this bank feed is very important because, as a boss said to me once, only touch it once. If not, you're wasting both our time. So I took that to heart, and I try and remember that when I'm doing something such as inputting this data, if I put it all in right, I never have to do anything again to this transaction. I don't have to create an invoice. I don't have to create a bill. I don't have to go in and change the account. Everything then flows through QuickBooks, puts it in its right category, creates a history for the transaction, and then also creates your financials. So you touch it once here through the bank feed, you'll never have to touch it again. What do I mean? Here's a bank feed that came in, and I can look kind of at the bank detail. I like looking at it. Said, yeah, it was books by Bessie, right? So you can see I can put in a vendor or a customer, but I'm going to say I receive money coming in. So it's a sale of a product. I can create an attachment, a rule, and I can also see the history of this. Here's where I could split it up. Say I've got to sell a product and I needed to split it by different categories. I could split it here, or if everything's good, I would hit the word add. You'll notice below it, you'll have other items that are coming in. Some may say match. If you're doing deposits inside of your system and then you do the bank feed afterwards, it will notice and not duplicate the information. That's the only thing I've seen in here when I'm training someone is sometimes information can be duplicated because they're thinking, oh, it's not in the system. Well, a lot of times it's coming in through the bank feed and it can duplicate. So what we want to do is if it says match, you can select match. That way it won't duplicate in your system, but shows that it did clear. And then you'll see a bunch of these here with uncategorized and no payee. It's giving me a description, but more information wins. You want to make sure you have that payee in there and the category. Then it would have categorized it next time after we saved it or added it into our system. Next up, adding customers, vendors, and employees. Let's look over to the left here. Over to the left, you'll see this menu, and the menu kind of breaks it down by the type of activity. So in sales, you're going to have all your sales, invoicing, estimates, customers, products. All those are through this drop down here. You also have what we call new up here, which we'll go over in a moment, which shows all the activities that you can get to just by clicking that new. But let's stay on customers because we're in a customer center right now. And all items to do with customers kind of are up on this toolbar up here. To the right here is where it says new customer. This is where I can add that. I wanted you to look at the customer. You can look at the unbilled, last 365 days, unpaid, 20 open invoices, and then there were 12 paid in the last 30 days. Just a little bit of information here. And then down here is where you have your customers, and it will have their phone numbers, addresses, opening balance. You can drill down on all those customers as well. So let's look at a customer. What does it need? It needs the name, company name, street address, and same as billing. You can add a default tax rate for them as well, put in their opening balances. But there are a lot of things. This is the main information just to get started. If you just put in a name, you're good to go. A lot of times we want to get the email in there because we'll be emailing invoices to customers. And now let's just look at it as we go down. We're looking at expenses and vendors. In vendors, same kind of layout, right? You will know in addition here, you can prepare your 1099s for all your vendors, but they are all alpha sitting here. And in the vendor, just need the name to pay someone. It's always nice to get the address as well. Set up expense rates. You can put in websites. What people want to see really is if there's an account number, because that will populate for this insurance agency. Employees will be going to the left again, grabbing payroll and employees, and it comes up with employees. You can also add your contractors and workman's comp. And we'll go over some of those items in the advanced class, but for an employee, it's a basic screen, their address, any government ID, hire dates, that's your social security number, date of birth, gender, and if they are, this becomes your HR. So the more information on the employee side wins as well. You can put notes, upload I-9s. Third lesson, we're going to enter items to sell, and we're also going to be looking at creating a bill and paying a bill, along with looking at employee time activity and other headers and deposits along with journals and transfers. Back to the gear, we're going up to the left, and I want to go to products and services. So there are four options here. Inventory should mean you're going to keep a physical inventory. You're going to enter the inventory either through a bill as you purchase the product, and then you relieve it through sales when you select that item. So the item, and you'll see you've got your products and services here, will also tell you if you're low in stock on your inventory. You can set that up in the preference to show once you get to 5, start saying I'm low in stock. Then the non-inventory part, these are products you buy and sell but don't keep track of. A lot of folks may just be in the non-inventory part category because most of the time these days people are buying it for the customer at the time instead of holding large inventories anymore. But if you want to track it, use the inventory. If you're not going to track it, use the non-inventory. Third one is service. I am a service provider, and all I need to do is set up a service item to sell, to put on the invoice, and I will be able to put my hourly rate and everything in there. It will populate the current rate that I'm at. And bundling. Bundling is usually made for a product when you're using, let's just say, a table and you're putting together 4 legs, the tabletop, 16 screws, and you can bundle your inventory to sell that one table, and it will bundle all those into one line item for your customer to see the end product basically for that. But these are the items that you use also to receive inventory in from a purchase order. So an inventory, let's just say we're buying rock fountains. We can use a SKU if you're using SKUs in there. And also you can put a picture of the item. You've got the category, which is under design, you've got fountains, and then you're calling this an inventory asset, meaning it's going to show on your balance sheet as an asset to you until you sell it. It relieves the asset and becomes a cost of goods. So the description can be kind of vague because you may have different rock fountains. So you could do rock fountain with triple waterfalls on there. But the sale price that you put in here is what's going to populate on the invoice. So if you have a lot of front office people who don't have price sheets, you would go ahead and set those prices up in here. If you fluctuate on these prices a lot, I usually don't put the price in there because I'm quoting it at a certain price. That way I would go off of my quote. And it wouldn't, when you go to pull up the invoice, it wouldn't populate this amount. And then the income account it points to. So when I sell this product, I want it to go to sales of product to income, and that will then reflect on my profit and loss when I go and sell the items. You can set up the sales tax in here. It's got a really nice program to keep track of your sales tax liability, your payments, and it also produces state tax forms for you. So that's really nice. Purchasing information, when you go to purchase it, here's the cost that you should be purchasing it for. Having the costs in here mean that they're set. A lot of times they're not. So I want you to remember that it's going to take this price and sell it for that, and then also put this cost in your cost of goods. And we know since the prices are fluctuating, maybe not a good idea because it could be 130 tomorrow. The purchasing information is every time I purchase this product for a client, I'm going to go to cost of goods, right? And that's when it's relieved out of inventory and then pushes over to the cost of goods. I can also set a preferred vendor in here. With that information, like I said, there's options where I can put a quantity on hand and, start telling me I'm low and when's my reorder point. And this is where you'd set that up. Service. If I'm doing a service, concrete for the fountains, I could say concrete for fountain installation. And then I want this to point to a different income account when I sell it. And then the purchasing side of it, I want it to actually expense to purchases. This is just a service, so I'm not keeping track of any inventory, and that's why you don't see any totals for amounts here of how many of the concrete you have, which is 0. Next up, the new button. That's what I said we'd get back to. I've kind of taken you through the sidebar there that shows you different ways to get to activities. Well, here's another way. I use this all the time. It just gets me directly where I need to go. I don't have to click more than one button. What we have is all the activities for your customer, such as invoice, receive payments, estimates, credit memos, vendors, same thing, expenses, checks, bills, pay bills, employees looking at their single time activities. Under other, it's got your bank deposit. Say you don't have an invoice, you're just going to make a bank deposit. Transfers, transferring between checking, savings, payroll accounts. You would just transfer through here. It doesn't transfer at your bank. You still got to transfer at your bank. It will bring it through your bank feed and you can hit select or transfer, but also you can just do a manual transfer right here. You can also do your journal entries, create your statements, adjust your inventory. So say if you have any lost, stolen inventory, but the inventory quantity adjustment will also just adjust the quantity without affecting any of the pricing. And then your credit cards, it will take you to pay down, make your payments on your credit cards. I haven't really used that much. As the payment for the credit card comes through the checking, it points and it says like we paid Chase, and it will bring that through. Here's your one-stop shop for getting all your activities for your customers, vendors, and employees. I'm going to go in and create an invoice. First thing you do is select the customer, and if you put in an email, it will automatically populate. It also comes from your customer, the address, the terms, and you can set those by taking the drop down and changing it maybe to net 15, net 60, special orders. But for a default, most of the time it's net 30. You can also select the invoice date. It automatically will do from your net 30 the due date for that, so you don't really have to, calc that out. Again, I've talked about tags, not too much, but you could put a word in here, fountain, and then I could search it, and all my fountains would come up by searching through the tag. I could also really just go to the item of fountains and run a report on all my fountains. So there's different ways to do things in here. Just to get you started and get selling, here is an example. They select the rock fountain. It's got a pretty vanilla description here, which you can change up. You can type in here. And then we've got a quantity 1. The rate comes up at what we set it for at 275. And you'll notice the check mark here means it's a taxable item. The next one is the pump, and then you've got the concrete. This is one way that you can go about it. You can, create your invoice here. We also have sales receipts, and sometimes you don't even have to create a invoice. You can make a deposit, put the customer to it, and we'll create the history for that customer. At the bottom, it gives you the option here to put a nice message. You can also attach an attachment to it. Here you can give a discount, and you can see the tax rate that usually is coming from that customer because they're using an 8%. It will populate this, and then it will also help you when you go to figure out what you owe for your sales tax. So a lot of time it's due on the 24th of the month. You can go into your sales tax liability and see what's due and go ahead and produce that check. The buttons down here, you can print and preview here. You can make things reoccurring. So say you have a reoccurring invoice, you can copy an original one and make it reoccurring for each month. You can customize, or is where you can delete, open that up, and you'll be able to see the different options that you have in there. Here you have save, save and send. So if there is a customer email, you could hit save and send, and it will populate with a nice message and send that to your customer. It will also keep track of when you sent it. So if you're not sure you sent it, you can see what date you had sent it. Receiving payments. We've gone from the new button, we did an invoice, and we want to receive the payment on it. They paid us. I'm selecting the customer. I'm going and putting the date in. I received the check, the reference number, which is the check number, and am I depositing it straight into the checking account? You can deposit into undeposited funds, which if you have 5 checks that you're going to deposit, you're going to have one deposit in the end, and you can put that to undeposited funds, put all the checks in, and then go to the new make deposit, select all of those to create an end deposit that will match the bank feed, because the bank feed isn't going to show you all your individual ones. They're going to give you what you put into the bank. Down here, I selected the invoice. Sometimes there's multiple invoices in here, but you can see I can record the payment, or say they didn't pay me in full. I could go ahead and just say they pay me $300. If everything's good to go, it's the same amount, you're going to go ahead and apply this amount and hit save and close. Same thing with the vendors. We're going to go in and create a bill and pay bills for this. You notice they've got a check here and expense. You can write a direct check through here without having to create a bill and pay the bill. You'll also notice we've got purchase orders, vendor credits, credit cards, and printing checks. For the bill, we're going to select the vendor. You can see there it comes up and it says for this vendor there is a purchase order open. And if we want to use that, we could click that and then it would populate everything from the purchase order. But in this case, we're just going to say it's Norton Lumber. We've got the mailing address. This is where we will be paying the bill to. You can put terms of the bill, bill date, and most important, getting that bill number in there. That's where the system can track if it's duplicated or not. And you've got 2 ways to put in information for the bill. The bottom one is bringing in inventory. So a lot of times, a lot of customers don't even use this, but for the ones that are using an inventory, you are creating a bill, meaning you went out and purchased products. And you'll notice it's populating the amount here. And if I was in here and I had a bill and it should be billed to a customer, I could put who it's billable, and if it's taxable, and the customer it belongs to. This is really powerful because it will put everything into that customer or customer's job. It will track all of your expenses, no matter if you bill them out or not. It will give you a good indicator of where you ended up on that job. You'll see down here you can cancel. Revert means you can just bring it back to zero, revert it back to its original state. Make this reoccurring. You could do a reoccurring bill. A lot of people do that with the auto payments because they're always reoccurring, or rents. More will actually help you delete or edit these transactions. And then you can save. This gives you an option to save and schedule a payment. But in the end, you can populate your inventory, and also they added a freight charge, so you can put that in up at the top because that wasn't part of your inventory. And if you're not even using inventory at all, you could put what category if you're selling fountains without any inventory and put it up here in the category detail. When I go to pay the bill, I will select the new and pay bills. It says what checking is this coming out of, what's the pay date, and what is the check number you want to use for your first check. And then in this case, I'm just going to select the Norton Lumber one, change this amount. It doesn't have to be, say, I want to pay 200 on it. I could change that amount. It would still leave the $55 dollars open for me to pay. And it's really nice down here. It says, okay, so you got $1,201 in your checking. You just made this payment. So here's your new balance. It's making sure you have enough funds in there to pay it. You can pay it online. You can print a check. It's up to you. Lesson 4, bank reconciliations. You must start with selecting the first month to be reconciled that you want to start from. So if you're going to start from the beginning of your fiscal or calendar year, let's just say January, right? You want to start with your January statement. From the bank statement, you are going to enter your ending balances, check off all your items such as your income and expenses, and then in order to proceed, you'll need to come to zero. This is what balances you out. Under the gear is the admin tool, which again would carry the reconcile. You would select reconcile and the account you want to reconcile. It will show a beginning balance, and you would put in the ending balance from your January bank statement if you started in January. And you'd put your ending date here and select Start Reconciling. When you reconcile in QuickBooks, it kind of takes everything by date, really date-driven system, and it takes all of it by date. You can sort it by any of these fields. You could sort all the payments together, all the deposits together. But what I want you to really come to is zero difference. If you come to zero difference, you'll take the finish now and it will save this. It will produce a report that you've reconciled these items. And you'll see by reconciling, you're checking them off. The system's so smart that if you're using the bank feeds, it will check off all the items that came cleared from the bank. It saves me so much time going in and reconciling, making sure everything's checked off. As soon as you get good at it, you'll go in there to reconcile and you will automatically come to zero. All the other ones that aren't checked off, I wait till the end of year. If they're still not checked off, then I'll go through and void the other transactions because maybe they didn't cash, maybe they were written accidentally. But this will affect your balance. So with these items in here, it's saying you've taken them out of your checking account, but they haven't cleared yet. Reconciliations are kind of fun when you get actually your zero balance and you're happy and you're like, yay, I did it. It's not as hard as it used to be and not as cumbersome, and everything is kind of automated and moving with you. If you do everything right, it can make your job a lot less work. The fifth lesson is going over the reporting, and the reporting has three tabs up here: standard, custom report, and management report. You can select some favorites that you use: profit and loss, balance sheet, and AR. Most of these reports, such as audit log, comparison detail, just give you kind of more aspects of looking at your business. And you'll notice in here, as I set these up, I've just kind of grabbed them from here and put stars on them to bring them up to my favorites. So let's just go over a profit and loss, which is your income and expenses for a snapshot in time. And in this case, you'll see the profit and loss report from 1/1/23 to 6/30. And the way you want to see it is by totals only. You can also omit any zeros, active columns, and then you can compare it to different periods. So on a basic totals only profit and loss, you're going to see your income, your gross profit, your expenses, and then your net income. I can also, by selecting totals only, go to monthly, and it's going to then spread my income and expenses by, in this case, we did January through June, giving me a total here. Notice how this total matches my custom totals only report, right? There are a zillion different ways to run these reports, but the two main ones I use to show to owners, shareholders, are the profit and loss standard and the profit and loss by month. But really cool, you could do that from just one report. Balance sheet. Here's your other part of your financials, which are your assets and liabilities. So your assets are all things such as checking, savings. You can also have your accounts receivable, inventory assets, fixed assets. Then you come down to your liabilities, what you owe. So my current accounts payable, notes payable, and then you'll see an opening balance and the net income, which is coming from the profit and loss we just did. And these are the two main sheets that your bank, shareholders all want to see. But we can also put it together in a really cool management report. And you could do a company overview, sales or expense overviews. It puts a really pretty, if you had your logo here, blue header stating here's your profit and loss and balance sheet, and they combine the reports together. You can add reports, cash flow it does for you. You can also do your budgeting. And then you can also view open invoices and unpaid bills. There are accounts receivable and accounts payable reports. It will give you all of your open invoices. In this case, I've got 1,167 out that people owe me. And in the unpaid bills, these are bills that I owe. I've got $1,602 in open bills, and it shows me the bills, anything past due, where they're at, and the date of the bill. So these two main reports I use to keep track and view my open invoices and unpaid bills. If you have someone that needs these reports to mark off the items they want paid, or your receivable person wants to know, when was the last time you spoke to them? Why aren't they paying? It's kind of a cheat sheet that you can print, write on there as you're trying to call for your receivables, and also hand off for management. Well, that was a pretty quick view of how to get started. It's really, one of those systems that can make your life a lot easier and take control of your finances.